The following transmission contains unencrypted instances of explicit language. Mature audiences are cleared to proceed.
What spy movie are we going to talk about next?
I don't know, man. I want to do something a bit meatier than the last one. Something more realistic.
And maybe something for the ladies, especially after, how sleazebaggy Bond is. You know what'd be cool? Let's do Miss Sloane.
Ooh, a political espionage thriller. And yeah, I really like that movie. Yeah, I'm totally down for that.
What's that?
Oh, that's the president's phone, dude. Did you not know that he has a direct line to this podcast?
I did not.
Okay, give me a second. Yes, hello? Yes, sir. What? You want us to do what? Okay, sir.
What did he say?
He says we have to do an episode about our Man Flint from 1966, like right now.
What? Come on, man, do we have to?
The president says we do!
Shall we begin? Let's begin.
The fantastic success of the first James Bond films in the 1960s spawned an immediate and global wave of imitators. By 1966, you could say that the film and TV world had gone kind of spy crazy. But Bond's ultra-iconic style was also super ripe for parody, and parody was not far behind the curve. I'm Todd.
And I'm Dave, and we like to talk about spy movies.
And we did just talk about Bond, so maybe it's a good time to go straight at one of the most iconic Bond parodies. Plus, the president told us we have to, in this episode of Spies Like Us. So, as we talked about in our last episode, James Bond really kicks off the spy craze of the 60s, and now that we're into 1966, the year of this episode's film, which is Our Man Flint. And by 1966, there's just a ton of things going on. Bond's fourth film has already come out, Thunderball, in 1965. At this point, they're making one a year. So as I think we mentioned before, too, they had always planned that as a series, like right from the get-go. In fact, the reason they didn't use, what's his name from North by Northwest? Was it Cary Grant? Maura, can you confirm that for us?
The 1959 film North by Northwest stars Cary Grant. It is widely considered a precursor to the modern spy film genre, in style if not in theme.
Yeah, it's Cary Grant.
Oh. Okay, never mind.
Yeah, okay, told you. But yeah, they wanted him for Bond, but he wouldn't sign up for 5 movies. They wanted a 5-movie deal from the actors, so they knew it was going to be a series. And so they're cranking those out. Everybody else is noticing like how much fun audiences are having with Bond films. And if you Google it, I mean, you'll see by 1966, like the shit is just like off the hook, and tons of the films and TV series that we think of now as like iconic early spy stuff. This is all happening just in this little like 4-year period. What do we got here? We got serious spy movies also, and by the way, I'm talking about spy movies all around the world. You got them coming out in Japan, in Europe, in Asia, just everywhere. And they range from like various like serious treatments of espionage to fairly direct parodies. Some of the serious movies that have come out, like The Spy Who Came In From the Cold, right? Super famous movie. That was 1965. So that was just a year before, as well as The Icy Press File with Michael Caine, also 1965. Hitchcock is doing Torn Curtain in 1966. And even the Flintstones are getting into this action. The Man Called Flintstone, 1966, is the Flintstones' first animated movie. They made it right after they had sunsetted the TV series. And it's a Bond parody. And the movie poster of that movie, The Man Called Flintstone, is a direct parody of the poster for the movie we're talking about today, Our Man Flint.
Oh, wow, we definitely got to do that one.
It's on the list. But I think we're going to try to like take a vacation from the 60s after this one. I could definitely use a vacation from the 60s, and I think you are with me on that.
Yeah.
television. Television's got it going on as well. The Man from U.N.C.L.E. began its run in 1964. Mission Impossible began its run this year in 1966. The Avengers TV series, which is an interesting one, and that's what I'm really looking forward to getting to someday, because that is a TV show that started in 1961 as a show about crime-fighting doctors, but by this time, getting swept up in the spy craze as well, it had kind of like evolved its main character into something much more Bond-like, and that's where you get that classic Avengers hero guy with he's an English gentleman with an intelligence background, and his bowler hat can be thrown at people and kill them or whatever, and he's got a sword and his umbrella.
Marvel films.
What's that?
Not to be confused with the Marvel films.
Not to be confused with the Marvel films. That's right. Yes.
I think they did a remake movie adaptation in the 90s with Uma Thurman, but turned out to not be so great.
Yeah, I still want to see it. Maybe make up my own mind about it. Sometimes, sometimes I don't agree with the general consensus of the crowd. But yeah, and I Spy. Okay, so now, and then TV comedies are also coming out. I Spy, the show with Bill Cosby, began its run just a year before in 1965, as did Get Smart.
Oh yeah, I missed that Get Smart. It was all about that shoe phone.
Yes, it's all about the shoe phone. So yeah, those are like that list I just, that we just gave. Like I said, this is all just stuff that's come out in the last 4 years, in like this tight little period. And all of those things are things that are like, should be like super high on our list when we look for, classic spy movies.
Yeah.
To look for. So it's kind of like the thing where, like, let's see, what is it? Creedence Clearwater Revival. Like, when you look back, I this was on Hit Parade. They did a show about this. When you look back in history, it's really surprising. Like, every fucking song that of Creedence Clearwater Revival, like, he wrote all those in like a fucking 3-year period.
You mean the ones that were used in like every Vietnam film ever?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were just that is a band that just like burned super duper 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 hot for a short period of time. So yeah, into this mix we have our Man Flint. It's a direct Bond parody. It stars James Coburn. James Coburn was you said you didn't know who he was. Which, you can be forgiven for that. Right, but he's someone like our dads definitely know. Like,
yeah.
He was, let's see, he was, a tough, cool guy that was one of the Magnificent Seven, and he's in The Great Escape.
Oh, that's what I know him from. I thought he looked familiar.
Sure. Yeah. So he's one of those guys that was running around with like Lee Marvin and Steve McQueen and Charles Bronson, and that he's that kind of dude. And we've got another guy that I know my dad would know a lot better than me, but Lee J. Cobb is the guy that plays his like frustrated ex-boss in this movie.
Right.
And Lee J. Cobb is like an actor of note. From this period, he was like the police investigator in The Exorcist, and he was one of the 12 angry men in that film, for instance.
Oh, right.
Not sure how much comedy he ever actually did, but I did think he was pretty funny in this film.
He was very funny. He definitely played the gags really well.
Rounding out the cast, Gila Golan. I don't know anything about her, but she does get like third billing in this. She plays the Bond girl, who's actually like the agent that our sinister arch enemy organization sends to like take Flint out, but of course ends up succumbing to his masculine virtues.
Yeah.
And I want to note one more guy too. This one, I love this one. Wait, I gotta find it. Her right hand man, not the creepy Uncle Fester German guy, but the uptight British guy that like undermines her through the whole movie.
Uh-huh.
You know that guy?
Yeah.
That is Edward Mulhare, and he is the guy that was what's his name's boss in Knight Rider.
Oh, okay. I mean, that's a pretty solid cast. After, I don't know, this film kind of felt like a MST3K episode.
It's funny you mentioned that. When we came to this, that's what I thought it was. I thought that was how I had first seen it, and I was actually really surprised that Mystery Science Theater did not do.
Yeah, this is definitely a movie they need to do, because it definitely is kind of weird and quirky, like their typical films are. I mean, it's not as low budget, I guess, and especially not with this cast. This cast is like pretty hefty for the time, it sounds like.
Yeah, sure. So that's the movie. That's the time and place it occupies in cinematic history, and we're gonna go in and tear it apart in the briefing room. Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
Voice pattern recognized. Retinal scan complete. Validating security clearance. Clearance granted. You may now enter the briefing room.
All right, so we start out and the weather's fucked up in the UN. I mean, Zowie, but really it's the UN. Springs in action. After some thrilling stock footage and footage of a miniature town being destroyed by a flood, and that weird dam shot where it was obviously a miniature, we visit Zowie, the Zonal Organization of World Intelligence Espionage. Yeah. That's a mouthful.
I like the fact that this movie wastes no time in letting us know what we're in for. Like, just right there, Zowie.
They set the tone. They set a tone. Yeah. And everyone at Zowie, I mean the UN, because that's what it really is, is like freaking out about these crazy weather events that are going on like all around the world, like this and all this stock footage that they're being shown of volcanoes erupting and floods and hurricanes and stuff. And they're getting a report that the Arctic has warmed by 5 degrees. And that another 5 degrees and everything's, basically all our coasts are wiped out. Everything's underwater. Yeah.
I did some maths on this, right? 5 degrees. Now I'm gonna assume it's an American film. That they're talking Fahrenheit. Did a little Googling and found at least one report that said okay, this is from the IPCC's 2013 report. So it's not the most up to date, but I didn't want to waste a whole bunch of time. But there's a prediction that there's a likely to be an increase in mean global ocean temperature of 1 to 4 Celsius by 2100. Now, 1 Celsius is 1.8 Fahrenheit. So if you do the quick math on this, the 5 degrees that they've suffered is ludicrously high. That, by comparison, if you compare it to that IPCC report from the real world, that's what we're expecting to see by 2100.
Oh. Yeah, it is a ridiculous change in temperature.
Right. And weirdly, this is not a movie about climate change.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Considering the timing, some of the images they had, I'm wondering if this might have been around the time they signed, the government signed the no weather weapon treaty or whatever. But I don't know, watching this film felt kind of Illuminati-ish to me. There was some creepy moments. So seeing that opening scene was kind of weird, but it might have just been happenstance considering the times we're in, and seeing it now it probably was ridiculous or a little bit more different back then. But now it's like, oh, wow, this is a kind of a real deal. And because of how goofy it was, it kind of made it feel propaganda-y a little bit. I don't know, but it was weird. It was really weird when I was watching it.
Well, that's true, and especially since, and that's something I'm going to get into later. I feel like this movie has kind of an overall kind of an anti-liberal point of view.
Well, I know we had talked about this. I'm not. I think it was more anti-communist, considering the times. But I mean, that'd be something we should definitely maybe talk about that a little bit later. But yeah, no, I remember we had talked about this a little bit.
Sure. So speaking of this like massive weather change, I'm a little annoyed and disappointed that it's not reflected in the movie whatsoever. Like, if this was really going on, like through the movie, as we follow our hero, like from like Marseille to Rome, and kind of around the world, doing his thing, like everywhere he goes, it's just a regular sunny day with everyone just going about their business. And I'm going to give that minus movie points because it's such a huge missed opportunity. I want you to imagine, for instance, like if they made this movie for some reason like a modern day movie where the like a Tom Cruise movie where the temperature had just jacked up 5 degrees, like the whole thing, like there'd just be panic in the streets everywhere, and like all these crazy like weather conditions and winds for like Tom Cruise to have to, and pouring rain and floods for him to have to deal with.
With exorbitant amounts of CGI, and it had an impact on the story. But yeah, they didn't even show any part of the weather being a problem.
It just kind of is mentioned. They're panicked about it, but we don't see anything actually happening in the movie.
Yeah.
So, whatever. Now the British, so of course, like they all agree, like what they need to do is like come up, like find a guy to save them. I don't know why that's their go-to. I don't know why they don't like call out the National Guard or whatever.
Yeah.
The British, of course, suggest 0008, which so the movie is also letting us know very early on, and it's going to remind us several times, that this is a direct challenge to James Bond. Like, yes. not even, it's like a rap song where you like have beef with the other rapper or whatever.
Yeah.
Whoever the studio that made this is their beef movie with James Bond.
Yeah. Yeah, we're just gonna go over the top with this, and we'll let you know right off the bat that we're name dropping.
In no uncertain terms. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the idea is, and Cramden, the guy Lee J. Cobbs that we talked about, he's the American representative of this global body, and he also seems to be kind of like in charge of everything, because he's American.
Because America, right?
Because America. So he says, okay, everyone, you need to write down what you think like would be the requirements for this job. Everyone write down their own ideas, and we'll feed it into the computer. And apparently, what everyone wrote down was that we need someone tall and lanky and with a big toothy grin.
Yeah.
Because that's what they get. The computer says Derek Flint, and everybody's really excited about this idea.
That computer was ridiculous.
The computer is awesome.
It was like those like old ones with vacuum tubes that took up an entire college campus.
And cards, and everything's done with cards.
Punch cards. Yeah. Punch cards. Oh my God, it was ridiculous. It like took up the entire government budget at that time, probably.
I don't know. I feel like they used like what might have at the time been like the earliest like voting machine or something. Yeah. But there's conveyor belts and cards being like shuffled and pushed around by jets of air and sorted into little files, and it's massive. There's one guy that isn't happy about this idea though, and that's Cramden, because of course he used to be Derek Flint's boss, and he's dealt with this man before, and what you guys don't understand is this man can't be controlled. He can't be relied on to follow orders. He's a loose cannon, damn it.
Yeah. Yeah, in typical old school film where our main character is that rogue type that's gonna like break through all the red tape and solve all the problems, right?
And Lee J. Cobbs throughout this movie does a really good turn at the stupid chief stereotype.
Oh, absolutely. He was fantastic, yeah.
He's not so much like crusty and hard-edged, like, damn it, you're gonna listen to me. He's just kind of more like, I don't know, in a more futzy way, like, damn it, Flint, this just isn't gonna work.
Yeah. You've got to follow the rules.
Gotta follow the rules. But here comes the phone. The president's hilarious little red phone is hands down my favorite character in this movie.
Absolutely. I want one.
I'm going to change my ringtone.
Yeah.
I'm gonna strip out the sound effect from the movie and I'm gonna turn it into my ringtone for my phone. It's a ridiculous, big, bright red phone, and it's got the president's seal
You know
on
what
it.
it reminded me of? Was the old Batman phone, the Adam West Batman, that giant, just that red phone. But this one was like bigger and like on a giant platform. And it would just like ring, and then he'd pull out this giant phone to answer the phone. It was pretty ridiculous.
For some reason, I kept thinking of, even though I kept thinking, I guess it's the opposite in a way, but like of the phone from Dr. Strangelove. You know, and all those hilarious one-sided conversations. There's something super, like, stupidly funny and eternally funny about a one-sided conversation where you only get to hear one side. And we never get to hear the president speak, at least on the phone in here. He just, but it rings every time Cramden is trying to talk people out of using Derek Flint or saying, we tried to get Derek Flint, but we couldn't. The phone just immediately rings, and you can just imagine the president's just on the other side just saying, like, look, man, you've got to get Flint on this job, and you've got to do it now. It's like the president is watching Cramden all the time. And every time he steps out of line, he rings the phone.
Zowie's being watched all the time because our villain organization seems to be like 5 steps ahead of them. So it's like everybody's being watched at that moment.
Right. Yeah. And it even rings. The best one is like just very soon in the movie, like Cramden's gonna try to get Flint and get shut down, and he flies back to Washington, and the little red phone is waiting for him on the tarmac. Yeah. When he lands to ring as he's getting off the phone, and he picks it up and he's like, okay, yes, sir. And he just hangs up, turns around, and gets right back on the plane.
I love that scene where he's just like, he just runs back up the stairs. Yeah. That was a great.
President's little red phone, MVP of this movie.
Absolutely. It gets the job done, right?
Absolutely. So Cramden fails twice to recruit Flint, once by sending a general, and then again in person. When he visits him in person, we actually get to meet this Derek Flint that we've been hearing so much about. And we immediately see that he's not, he seems like not a very ordinary person.
No, this guy does everything. He's like in the middle of training in every shot we get of him. He's either teaching a class or like, training his fencing or his karate or something. He's one of those guys that just constantly is like self-improvement.
Yes, massive self-improvement kind of guy. I think that in the trailer it says like he fences for breakfast and does martial arts for lunch. We don't get to see this in the movie, but also in the trailer, he's described as a brain surgeon, a karate champion, and a nuclear physicist.
Sounds like, top-notch drafting for a world spy to take on the case of global devastation. Maybe behind the coronavirus.
And he teaches ballet in Russia as just a hobby.
Mm-hmm.
Why not? He's got his special cigarette lighter with 82 different functions, 83 if you want to light a cigar.
Yep.
He's got super cool special gadgets in his watch. He's got a private jet. He's got he's in some kind of what's the Mormon thing?
Polygamous.
Yeah, he's in a polygamous relationship.
In today's speak, it's a polyamorous relationship with these 4 hotties. Yeah. Which I definitely have some stuff to say about that later.
And they're all not only beautiful, but they also seem to be very sophisticated and kind of skilled in their own way. And they kind of perform. Let's see, they work as his support team. It looks like.
Yeah, we'll call it a support team.
Yeah, we'll call it that. You could also call it a harem. He's got a support harem.
Yeah, there we go. Support harem. Codenamed support harem.
He can control his metabolism, and even like
Doesn't he control his heart or something?
Yes, we're gonna show him sleeping straight as a board between two chairs, right? Doing that trick, where your feet are on one chair and your head's on the other chair, but you're just, and he's there with his pulse and breathing down to 0, and his heart is stopped for 3 hours.
What is it? His watch like wakes him up or something with some weird tick to his like wrist or something.
Yeah, and it's commented that he does that just for relaxation.
Yeah.
But maybe that's part of his key thing. Actually, I remember I was a little disappointed because the way I remembered this film, or maybe I saw the sequel and not this one, but I had remembered.
They made 2 of these?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
The next one is called In Like Flint.
Wow.
But I had remembered there being more Eastern mysticism in his kit. And that being my favorite part of him. So maybe there's more of that in the second movie, or maybe it's just the way I remembered it. But I like the fact that he's got these, these meditative, like kind of like mysticism kind of elements to him.
Well, yeah, he's got the whole pack. Like we're saying, this is a guy of like all of. He's not a jack of all trades. He's a master of all the tricks.
He's very multicultural.
Multicultural. He learns everything. The way
that Bond is not.
That's true.
Bond's just pure limey.
Yeah.
But this guy, he's into Russian culture. He's into Middle Eastern stuff. He knows exactly what the ingredients of a certain kind of soup that's served only in a certain district in Marseille is.
Yeah. And we'll get to that scene where he tries every soup in the entire city.
That's funny. Yeah. So he tells Cramden to stuff it and just goes out to dinner with his ladies.
He hasn't even been on the case, and this is like the villain group that apparently is watching Zowie the whole time. I mean, the UN. The whole time and is 5 steps ahead of them, and yet they seem to believe that Flint is on the case, even though he said no. So they're at this dinner, and they tried to kill him. Like, what was it? Like a harp player shot a dart?
Yeah, Gila Golan, who is the section head of Section 4 of Galaxy. Galaxy is the evil organization. I'm not sure why. I guess she's a very proactive section head because she definitely is taking matters into her own hands here. Yeah. You would expect a section head to just send an agent to do the job, but nope, she's right on the front lines. She switches places with the harp player at the restaurant, and tries to shoot Derek with a poison dart using the harp as a little bow, and she misses. And I want to give some -5 points. I think firing the dart with a harp is just kind of silly.
Yeah.
And also, it didn't work.
Yeah, then it hits some other guy, and then we had Flint, who's a master of everything, came and tried to save his life. And they're like, he would have died in like 4 seconds, 3 seconds, as Flint corrects the man. Yeah, that was...
Sure.
I'm just trying to get out here that the tone of this film is set pretty early.
Well, it's a good thing she missed, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And it doesn't even seem like, like Derek Flint didn't, detect the dart coming or something. It just happened to be, Cramden had accosted him and they're kind of arguing or something. And Derek, they were spinning around just in time for Cramden to take the dart instead of Flint.
Yeah. But I mean, this is still really silly because, as we'll find out in a little bit, this is what set off Cramden into getting into the job. He didn't want the job.
You mean Flint?
Flint, yeah. Flint didn't want to get into the job, and now they're making it personal for him because they're taking shots at him for no reason.
They're trying to take him out even before he's on the case, and this is -5 points. In fact, it's so bad that the fact they tried to kill him is the reason he agrees to take the case. And even worse, the dart is what's later going to give him the clue to find them in Marseille, which is one way where another attempt on his life is going to give him another clue that helps him find them in Rome. And what they're doing here is they're just making his job totally easy for him.
Yeah, they literally just helped him find where they were and who they are, and every step of the way they're just like giving him like little handouts.
Everything that he does to locate their headquarters in Rome, eventually, is something that if they had just done nothing, then he would have had nothing to go on.
Yeah.
Now, of course, maybe we're meant to think it would have been super easy for him to figure it out no matter what. But I'm going to give it my number 3 worst tradecraft of the movie, which was villains just being a little too trigger happy. Well, no, not a little, a lot too trigger happy here.
Yeah.
And just kind of undercutting themselves. So
Flint finally takes the job, and he's sitting there with Cramden. So he finally takes the job, and he's in the office with Cramden, and Cramden is offering him this briefcase, which is definitely a callback to From Russia with Love, because there's the knife that pops out of the briefcase, and there's all kinds of stuff in the briefcase, which of course our man Flint completely declines because he has this lighter with 82 plus functions and 83 if you want to light a cigar. So on top of the lighter, it's got all these weird functions, and he does everything his own way. He uses his own codes, his own jets, so he refuses everything, including a team that is offered to him from Cramden. And I'm going to say this is my number 1 worst tradecraft. For the cinematic reasons of the film, this guy is supposed to be this is a parody of Bond, and Bond's the self-sufficient lone wolf type or whatever. But not having a team, especially for a problem of this scale, I think it's probably one of the biggest mistakes that Flint made. Even though everything he does is over the top, he doesn't make too many mistakes. But I think it's a bad idea for him not taking a team.
He doesn't even know what he's up against at this point.
Yeah, he's just like, all right, yeah, fine, I'll take the job because they made it personal, and I'm gonna go as a lone wolf and do everything my way. But everything's fine, whatever. But just the fact that he turned down a team. I mean, it was a team under his command too that he could have just told what to do. I don't know the reason behind any of it.
We're gonna keep making jabs at Bond throughout the film. Later, we're gonna see Gila reading the Adventures of 0008 and dismissing it as unbelievable nonsense, which is rich coming from this film.
Totally. Yeah.
They're still in the office. He analyzes the they get the lab results back of the dart that was shot at Flint in the restaurant that actually got Cramden. And there's some traces of fennel and garlic or something in a certain combination that leads are super and this is something even Sherlock Holmes this is even too much for Sherlock Holmes. He immediately knows that these ingredients are only used in a certain kind of soup that's only served in a certain little district in Marseille. Yeah. And I'm not even giving that spy points because now you just have fucking superpowers.
Yeah.
You don't give spy points for superpowers.
Yeah. And this is right around when he beats up the guards after Cranben's yelling at him. They're gonna tell him they're gonna arrest him for assault, but somehow he recognized him. Cranben's these guys have been working for us forever. He's no, these guys are part of the enemy. And he beats them up, and then they find the real guards that are dead in the other room, and apparently they were able to do plastic surgery that quickly to make them look exactly like them. And then he just randomly just this whole shot. He just randomly attacks the 2 guards in the office.
Well, it seems random to us, but then he explains. And he says, you see this is the ribbon for the Battle of the Bulge. And Crimson's well, there is no ribbon for the Battle of the Bulge. So I'll give plus spy points for that. That's some good sleuth work right there. So now that he's got the soup information, he travels to Marseille, and Gila and her goon are there. It's not clear why, except maybe that her goon just happens to hanging out in that restaurant because he likes that soup. And they've got...
He's actually eating the soup, which is how we know the trace was probably on the dart, because he just eats the soup all the time.
Sure. But they're there, and they've got a bomb ready in a case of cold cream, and there's no explanation of why they have that. Because they shouldn't be. I mean, later she's going to try to use it to blow Flint up, but at this point she shouldn't have any reason to suspect that Flint is going to arrive in that cafe on that night. So -5 points for the film.
Yeah. That was kind of silly. What I loved in this scene though, at the bar, because Flint find. Oh yeah, we didn't get to talk about the soup before we even get to the bar scene with our villains.
Oh right,
the Marseille and goes to like every like restaurant possible and eats the soup, takes one sip or one spoonful, shakes his head and then walks out. Like it's like a montage of him just trying soup for like 5 minutes. And he gets to this, I don't know, bar, club, lounge thing with his like performances and stuff, and that's where we find our villains. And as he's at the bar, 888, who we've been introduced to only through, I guess, dialogue, is actually at this bar, and I guess there to meet Flint, and just starts a fight with Flint. So they're having this like crazy fist fight, and you're like, wait, it just comes out of nowhere. But then 888 starts giving Flint all this information, and I was like, oh, this is kind of like their way of like passing information without making it look obvious that they know each other. They're just like pissed off at each other at the way they talk. Well, that's right. 888 was like kind of being slimy with the dancer girls. And like, Flint shows up like the Sir Lancelot to go stop him. And
right, he knocks Flint over, into a slightly separate section of the restaurant, and as they're wrestling, he's like, "I wanted to have a word with you."
Yeah, and they have like a whole like passing of intelligence together, and so this is like my number 2 best trade craft,
and my number 3.
Oh yeah, Todd's number 3. Yeah, definitely +5 points on this. As ridiculous as it is, I thought it was kind of clever because out in the public, it's just 2 dudes fighting, and they're just passing off information. So there'd be really no reason to suspect that they know each other.
Right, and even as Derek is tossing him out of the restaurant, he says, "See you later, 888," and 888's like, "See you later, Flint."
Yeah, it was pretty ridiculous, but I thought that was kind of clever. So yeah, definitely +5 points from both Todd and I.
Next up, the goon, Gila's goon, follows Flint into the bathroom where he attacks him, and I thought it was kind of a cool fight for the time. But Flint kills the goon, and then he spends a bunch of time disguising himself as he leaves the bathroom, and I don't like this part. I mean, it's sort of clever. I mean, it's definitely he's being creative. What's the word for resourceful? Yeah, he's being very resourceful. He's using the auto towel in the bathroom to pretend that he's got a turban, and he's got a reversible jacket, so that he comes out and he puts on some sunglasses. So he does come out looking entirely different than when he went in, but it's a small bathroom, and he spent a lot of time in there. And who really, if anyone was watching the bathroom, who is going to be fooled by this? Nobody.
I don't know, because when Gila and her goon arm the bomb, oh no, that's right, he kills the goon inside, and then Gila arms the bomb at the table, I guess, to blow up Flint. And when Flint gets back, he notices the cream, and he just starts pulling out like a gadget to test it. I think it's the lighter, actually, and determines it's a bomb. Pulls out a gun and starts scaring up the crowd, like he's gonna shoot up the place. So really quick, in the previous scene, didn't he eschew the notion of carrying a gun? Oh, that's right. No, he's got the goon's gun at this point. Yeah, because he disarmed him in the bathroom, which the moves were pretty cool. They were pretty cinematic moves, but kind of a good situation to get out of. I don't know, but yeah, he runs out and starts waving his gun around to scare out the crowd because he realizes there's a bomb in the place. So I guess to save everybody's life, he pretends like he's going to shoot up the place just so he can get the bomb out of the way and protect everybody. So I put this down as my number 3 best tradecraft. That coming back from the restroom, he notices like an item on a table and is suspicious because he knew Gila and the goon were sitting there. And then he kind of
Did he though? The movie never showed any indication that he had noticed them at the table.
Yeah, but it's our man Flint. He notices everything, right?
She has no reason to think that he would come and sit at her table after she left.
No, I know, but he would have noticed the goon sitting there, right?
Just giving -5 points for her for this whole bomb plan.
It
doesn't even seem because there is no plan, because it just doesn't it doesn't hold up. It's tissue thin. Like there's no reason for them to have brought a bomb to this location. There's no reason for her to suspect that Flint would come looking at a case of cold cream sitting at her table.
Other than they know it's Flint on the job at this point, and he's like a master of everything, so they probably would have presumed that he would have picked up on the soup or something, unless they planted the trace of soup there to get him there. I don't know.
That's an interesting thing. And since you bring that up, let's tackle that right now. You could put this alternate theory in place where they were so clever that they knew that he would figure out the soup thing.
Right.
To get to Marseille. And in a second, he's going to use evidence from the bomb to figure out that the bomb came from Rome, which is his next step, which again, they're just leaving these totally unnecessary breadcrumbs along the way. But even given all that, even if you do have that theory of the case, they never show any indication of being that clever or of being that aware of Flint's capabilities. So if that's what the movie was trying to do, it failed. -5 points.
Well, I mean, my thought is that it's being a parody. It's just assumed, which in a lot of the Bond films, things just happen like that, and it's just assumed. Like why how are we supposed to figure this out or whatever? It's just assumed that all of this is in play and without any indication whatsoever.
There's only so much though that I'm gonna let a movie off the hook for having shit that doesn't make sense.
I agree. I'm definitely not trying to defend the film. I'm just I'm reaching for something, because there's a lot that's pretty over the top here.
Right. There's a big difference, in my opinion, between unrealistic spy stuff and spy stuff that you just put on the page without even thinking about how it would work.
Right. Yeah, definitely. But I did like how he scared everybody off to kind of deal with the bomb, and like that he went back and noticed something that wasn't there and then like checked on it, and quick reaction. So I put that as my number 3 best.
For instance, I will give +5 points for him using his little microscope watch to analyze the bomb fragments. I'll give +5 points, especially if you like gadgets, for contacting Cramden at HQ with his radio-equipped lighter. Remember, it's got 82 functions. In fact,
and he uses Morse code? Does he talk to them? Oh, he talked to them in numbers.
That's numbers, right? Which are all based on a mathematical progression of 42, 26, 36, which he twice in the movie tries to explain what it's based on. And both times the other person says, "No, I can guess what it's based on." It's supposed to be measurements of a lady.
Oh. But yeah, no, they're definitely a cool gadget.
I do overall, I do like the gold lighter. We're going to see it do a lot of other cool things. We're going to see him use it as a blowtorch to escape from inside a safe. We're going to see him use it as a smoke bomb. And, yeah, it's cool. As a concept, the gold lighter is neat.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Batman's utility belt, but in classy gold lighter form.
Yeah. So then we get to Gila's guy?
Sure. Well, he's going to head to Rome based on having figured out that, either the ingredients of the cold cream or elements of the bomb, either way, it's some kind of metal, but I think there is some kind of metal used in cold cream. but it comes from a certain mine in Tuscany or something. And so he heads to Rome to continue to pursue the villains. And we get treated to a scene aboard Gila's sub. That's one of the cool things we hadn't mentioned yet, but she's got a submarine that she cruises around in. And, here. So here she gets to talk with her bosses, the arch villains of the movie. I think this is the first time we see them.
Yeah.
It's three doctors in white coats. We're gonna
like three scientists or something.
Yeah, it looks like three scientists. We're gonna get back to them when we meet them on the island. But here she, is basically like confidently reporting that Flint is dead, and I have to give her huge minus spy points for this because why? First of all, like I said before, why would she think that it would have killed Flint? It was a pretty localized explosion. It's not like it destroyed the whole cafe. It looked like it would have just maybe seriously injured people sitting at the table that it was at.
Yeah.
So first of all, she doesn't have any reason to think it would have killed Flint. Second, any halfway decent spy that had just left the club with a bomb in it would have monitored the club. They would have seen everyone running out screaming. They would have known that there are multiple exits out of the club, which we did see. So even if she didn't see him coming out one door, there's no reason for her to assume he couldn't have easily left out another door. Remember, she sees a bunch of people leaving the club. All of the people leaving the club. So there's no reason for her to be so confident that it would have killed him. Minus 5 points. In fact, I think I put that as my number 2 worst.
Yeah.
I'm going to give her some more minus 5 points too, because apparently her right-hand man, Rodney, who I think we've seen before, but this is where we first see him getting some speaking lines. Edward Mulhare, who I did recognize. I was surprised, actually. I mean, I wasn't surprised when I looked him up that he was someone whose face I knew, because he turns out to be the guy that's the boss of, what's the dude's name in Knight Rider?
Michael.
Hasselhoff.
Oh, Hassel. Yeah,
oh, right. Yeah, the character's name is Michael. But yeah, David Hasselhoff's boss in Knight Rider seems to be what he's most famous for. He's kind of like, seems like a poor man's Chris Plummer, is how I read this guy. It's like, we couldn't get Christopher Plummer. Well, let's get Edward Mulhare.
Yeah.
Now, apparently he reported the fact that Flint survived to the 3 scientists without telling her, which is a dick move.
Yeah, he's gunning for her job. He wants to take over this project.
And evil spy alarm should be going off in her head, because he's clearly undercutting her right in front of her face. He even volunteers to take over the mission right in front of her. And the failure of her to do anything about that and to be surprised, like maybe when he undercuts her later in the film, should earn her some more minus spy points. Yeah. In fact, I don't think she gets any positive spy points in this film. I think she's a pretty bad villain.
She doesn't really actually do much. Adding to like the kind of demeaning of women in this movie and the Bond films. I don't really think there's any women that do anything in this movie.
Well, I do like the fact that she's, the head of a section.
Yeah.
I do like the fact that she's in charge of killing Flint, as far as go woman power kind of thing. But the fact that she's so miserable about it definitely more than compensates.
Mm-hmm. And then this is when she gets the note where she finds out his weakness. There's 4 weaknesses, which is the harem support team.
Which is, by the way, passed to her on a handwritten note. I don't know why I key in on stupid things like this. I just like doing that. It's a fucking handwritten note. Somebody get a typewriter for this submarine.
Yeah. Well, they end up kidnapping the girls, right?
Yeah, sure. So that's kind of clever, right?
Yeah, we get like a montage of the girls being kidnapped. Yeah, I guess it's kind of plus spy points. They found out a weakness of his, and now they are, I guess, leveraging it. And so the girls are off on their day, like getting their hair done or trying on clothes, and they get abducted in all
Yeah, and
kinds.
it is a montage, and I did like the first one the most, where she's trying on clothes in a mirror, and the person behind her just like pushes her through the mirror, which turns
Yeah,
out to be like kind of a trapdoor mirror kind of thing,
yeah,
which was clever, but it's awfully specific and localized abduction device, and also unnecessary because she's in a private hotel room. You could have just nabbed her. Like, there's no reason to do that, but yeah, so. We'll come out even Steven on the spy points on that one.
yeah.
So Flint travels to Rome, and we also see that Cramden is following Flint to Rome because he did get the secret signal messages that Flint sent from the cafe using his super secret spy gold later radio watch or later. Now at this point, the villains. This is like I guess I don't know, the third time Flint's encountered the villains. This time they actually seem to be ready for him. Again, and we just talked about it, like maybe there's this super theory where they had like actually meant to leave all these breadcrumbs, but again, they didn't show any sign of being that clever. But in this case, they actually are like waiting for him. And Gila's plan here is to have sex with Flint. Great plan. I don't know. Yeah. Skip to the end much?
Yeah.
He doesn't even have to seduce her. She's just like, let's go. She tells him about the weather control base in the volcano. Her plan, which does work, okay, let's give it credit for working, is like what she wants is for him to steal her office key after they have sex. But let's be honest, he would not need that key. A man like Flint can fucking pick a lock, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, especially with that blowtorch we see later. But
right, whatever. Yeah. But,
look at towards the mouth, I guess.
Her little ploy does work. He steals the key. He goes to her office at night, cracks the safe, and he goes inside so that her guys can trap him inside the safe. And I'm going to give Galaxy some props. And, I just said earlier I didn't think she got any plus spy points in this movie. No, she does get plus spy points here. Because at this point, we do know just how capable and survivable he is. So trapping him inside a safe with no ventilation seems like a very sensible and safe way to try to kill him. And then we also see that the safe is detachable as a trailer from the outside, so they can just, cart him around. And plus 5 points for that. Number 2 best.
Yeah, and but I definitely want to talk about this building. So the beauty supply front building or whatever, it's like one of those, like in the Bond films, there's always like some giant mansion with like tons of moving parts and like very industrial sized kind of, this whole building sinks like on an elevator to be hidden and just disappears. And I think Todd you wanted to give some plus spy points on this.
Well, yeah, I like the fact that it's just ingenious like evil villain kind of stuff, and then there's a whole show of a bunch of people rush out and set tables out, and a bunch of people are pretending to be customers, and some people are pretending to be waiters, and it just looks like a cafe.
A cafe, yeah. They just kind of hid this entire building and set up like this fake scenery with like 20 something people, 30, 40 people or something like that with this fake cafe. The building sinks and no longer exists.
Yeah, boom, gone in a minute.
And I mean, like, I know how over the top this film is, and so I guess, like, okay, it's kind of cute, but like, just thinking about it, I mean, unless they have this building for like some doomsday plan where they need to sink underground and get away or whatever, but it seems to me that they've actually planned this whole thing out several times to pretend this building doesn't exist. And people live in the area. There's other buildings. It's not like an area that's secluded in the middle of nowhere and it just disappears. It's like a building in the middle of like a busy city where like there's like apartments all over the place. There's little businesses all over the place. Like for them to like actually make it go up and down on like not even considering the build, like the construction of like such a concept. You're talking like crazy amounts of money, and for what? Like how many times are they going to use this? Like I guess you could argue it's for some situation where they might have to like hide from like some crazy doomsday situation or whatever, because that's why you would build a building like that. But it seems like they built the building literally to make it hide. Like no one in the neighborhood would know. So I'm gonna put this as my number 3 worst trade craft.
Right. Like how long would that construction have had to have gone on?
Yeah, it would have taken forever to make it, and the amount of time. I mean, from the way that they look, that they've practiced the situation out where the building sinks and then they make up a cafe. Like it seems like this is something that they do often to like pretend this building's not there.
As an audience, we know that Cramden is just about to show up looking for Flint, but the villains don't have any reason to think that.
No, they don't. They're just like, all right, let's just make this building go down. So I thought it was like not the best use of resources, and I'm not sure what the purpose. So I'm putting that as my number 3. But as soon as Cramden shows up with some military official and a bunch of other guys, and they go up to the cafe and they start talking to people at the cafe about this building that's missing. They act like he's crazy. And they go back, and then what was it? The military official? He was just like, or was it Cramden? He was like, great intelligence work, screaming as loudly as possible in the public. I'm gonna put this as my number 2 worst tradecraft. Where like, why are you screaming out like great intelligence? You know, and then saying your next job is gonna be over here, like you're literally just like showing your hand way too loudly for no reason.
And I'm going to jump in right on after you with my number 1 worst tradecraft for this film, which is, okay, so again, we just talked about the implausibility of, you know, the over-preparedness and the implausibility of setting this whole, like, disappearing building trick up.
Yeah.
It's also really stupid because even afterwards, our side should easily be able to find out if that cafe had indeed been there for years, as the man says, as the Galaxy agent who's like pretending to be the maitre d' or whatever of the cafe tells them. Like any kid who lived in the neighborhood could confirm or deny that. This is not a complicated intelligence gathering mission. You just grab some random fucking newspaper boy off the street and say like, hey kid, how long's that cafe been there?
Yeah. Do you remember another building being over here? You know, like, yeah. That's definitely a good point.
Now, I want to flag this little tiny thing here next. I hope not to spend too much time on it, but I liked what I found. You know, like I like to, so again, we got Cramden. He's frustrated. He's annoyed. Like you said, he's yelling about this the stupid intelligence of the people around him. And as he's driving away in the car, he yells to the guy. He says, great intelligence. Your next post will be Peyton Place.
Yeah.
And so, me being me, and this podcast being this podcast, I was curious, what is Peyton Place? We have seen in lots of movies over the years, we have like all these jokes about like when you fuck up at your job in the military or intelligence, like they, your next post is in Nome, Alaska or something, yeah. Right? Alaska seems to be our go-to joke on that one.
Yeah.
Or Siberia, if you're a Russian that fucks up. And I guess, where do they send you if you fuck up in MI6?
I don't know, probably
Greenland?
Yeah. Or they just send you to like Middlesex or something. Yeah. No.
So I did look it up. I was like, what's Peyton Place? And it was kind of interesting because Peyton Place is not just a small American town. It's a fictional one. It doesn't exist. But in 1966, there had been, which is the time that this movie had come out, recently there had been 2 movies and a television series that just started up, which were based on a novel called Peyton Place. And the story just seems to be about bored housewives having affairs and scandalous soap opera, stuff like that.
Kind of like a Stepford Wives type of situation.
I'm not even sure it's like that. It's just a small town where, like, I don't know, like the just ladies are sleeping with people they shouldn't be sleeping with. So at first, I mean, I scratched my head on that a little, but then I realized, like, oh, I get it. So the implication here is that this guy's fit for nothing better than investigating who's sleeping with who. You know, like that kind of, you know how like when you have a film noir where you have like a detective that the police want to say like you know, like you're like, take the example of, for instance, like Who Framed Roger Rabbit, right?
Yeah.
Bob Hoskins' character, uh, he's a drunk, like washed up detective who's just, his jobs are like taking photos to prove that someone's having an affair or something. And like, you always have these scenes where the police are like really dismissive of that kind of work. Like, that's the lowest of the low kind of fucking scummy ass, just dirtbag, fucking fishing for nickels kind of investigation.
Right, exactly.
So in this case, this joke would have landed with audiences because they would have all been very familiar with Peyton Place. It was very popular, like I said, like movie series, TV series at the time. And the implication is just that like, you are such a shitty intelligence operative that you should be fucking doing Bob Hoskins' job in Who Framed Roger Rabbit. That's all you're good for.
But yeah. So in this whole thing, Flint gets the island location from inside the safe. And,
he does. The very clearly marked in somebody wrote Galaxy Island in a big red marker, and just in case you missed that, there's like fucking 4 big huge arrows written in red marker pointing toward it.
Kind of like in Looney Tunes where they have that light like bad guys hideout.
Yes, yeah. Very much so.
Yeah. And then, well, this is where we get to see the lighter torch, right? He gets through the safe because, you know, he's about to get suffocated. And he uses the lighter that has this giant, like, blowtorch all of a sudden, which I guess you could also light a cigar with.
Right.
He uses the torch to, like, crack open the safe, notices that he's on a trailer, so he's probably going to be able to use his opportunity to get to where he needs to get to. And slows down his heart to pretend that he got suffocated by the safe.
Because he, ordinarily he's like ready to make his escape. But he uses, again, I think it's from his later, I forget, or something, but he shoots a little like listening device on a wire.
Oh, yeah.
To the back window of the car that's pulling the trailer. Yeah, and so he can listen in on that. And that's when the harem
support team got kidnapped or something.
Yeah, say that again. That's when he learns what?
That's when he learns his harem support team got kidnapped.
Right, because he was just about to radio to send the fleet to destroy the island, but then he hears that his girls have been taken to the island, and so he aborts giving the location. And then does the metabolism trick that we talked about before to fake his death by suffocation, which is what the villains are expecting, right? That's what the villains are hoping for. That's what the villains expect, given what they expect.
Right, since they're just as clever as Flint apparently, and have set up this whole situation. But this is both our best tradecraft was the stopping the heartbeat.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a little cheaty because it does stray into the realm of superpower, but it's also just fucking cool. And it's like the coolest thing he does in this movie.
Well, I'm going to say that I don't know how unrealistic it is. I've heard that people can do that and have done that in the past. I don't know how successful now with the instruments we have, but from what I understand, people do know how to stop their heartbeats.
Sure. But, you know, again, it's tough with rating these, like, tradecraft things, like, when we're doing such different kinds of spy movies.
Yeah.
Like, you know, in The Company, this would have not...
No.
You know, this is not in a Most Wanted Man, our expectations are quite a bit higher.
Yeah, we expect some solid tradecraft in those films versus like we do these where everything's so outlandish and perfect. It's no.
You just find what you can and go with it. So he's doing that. A picture of him dead is sent to Zawi, or the UN, where we also note that the Arctic is continuing to collapse, even though, again, like we're not seeing any indication. It's still a sunny, fucking bright day on the Paramount sets or wherever they film this garbage in all the scenes. The evil scientists at this point announce themselves to the world via TV broadcasts. It's one of those classic scenes where they have, like you turn all the channels and, oh my God, it's the same thing on every channel. How did they do that?
Yeah. They just broadcast it everywhere.
And the scientists are saying, hey, everybody, chill out. We are your friends. We are your friends. We're gonna make everything better. And just to demonstrate like how powerful we are and that you should take us seriously, we're gonna like blow up some volcanoes. Yeah, which is kind of counterproductive.
They didn't. Yeah, but they didn't do it on a serious event. They did like a small earthquake, right? And the volcanic damage wasn't that big of a deal, right?
Yeah, I don't know if they clarified that, but no, it's two specific volcanoes which have been long dormant, and they're gonna have both of them go active again at an exact time, and that's supposed to demonstrate that they have.
Scale. They even called out the seismic scale, like it was like a 3.6 or something like that, and the seismologists come back with the exact measurement that they claimed that they were going to create or something.
And their evil demands of the world are for all the world powers to destroy all their nuclear weapons, all of their military aircraft and navies, in order to create a more peaceful and productive world.
And I think this is where we were talking about the technocracy, and you were saying it's anti-liberal.
I'm gonna need another beer before we get into that. But I'll start out by saying, as far as evil plots go, this is one I feel like I can kind of get behind. What's wrong with getting rid of what's wrong with someone taking the world hostage and saying, dude, lose the nukes?
Well, we'll talk about it later after your beer. All right.
Mara, play some music.
Play that phone ring. The phone ring.
So yeah, next up, Flint in his induced comatose state or whatever, his pretend death, arrives on the island. Gila delivers the coffin. He wakes up when he gets a chance, and without being seen, he grabs a henchman disguise. And he finds on the island a utopia-esque society with advanced technology.
That has like a really commune feel to it. Like you think we're gonna get into like some evil villain base, but there's like a ton of people just waltzing around like in a tropic paradise. Like
tropic paradise, people are wearing not much clothes. It's colorful clothes.
Very hippie commune feel
Probably
to it.
A lot of free love going on around here. We get the idea, but we also see like some cool like what do you call it? What's the thing at Disneyland? The tram, whatever thing.
Monorail.
Yeah, the monorail. We see like a kind of a science fiction version of that going through the air. And by the way, I really like, for the special effects budget that they used on this film, which was not a lot. I feel like they put a lot into this scene, and that I think it was very effective. I think in just like one or two really good establishing shots, they really conveyed like the sense of this island as a utopian paradise.
Definitely.
Gila gets embarrassed in front of her scientist evil masterminds when the coffin that she delivers does not contain Flint. Meanwhile, while Flint is like reconnoitering the island, he gets discovered And some goons escort him to the bosses, and he sees all the mad scientist stuff that they have along the way, like all these just weird, like Star Trek-y kind of like spinning, wah 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 kind of engines and things. And this is probably like all the machinery that they use to control the weather.
Yeah. Well, it's an entire like facility type thing that he's like running into.
Yeah. So we meet the three scientists. Now we get to talk about them. They are Krupov, Wu, and Schneider. In other words, we got a Russian, a Chinese, and a Jew or German, works either way.
Wait, but wasn't it the Jew or German that had the last name Wu and the Chinese guy that had the last name Schneider?
It is really weird. I kept thinking it was a fucking typo in the IMDb cast notes. But yeah, the Chinese guy is named Schneider, and the German guy is named Wu. For no apparent reason except just to confuse my...
Well, I think it was a comedy bit. I think they were trying to make a little bit about it. But, I mean, good on them for not, like, pulling the stereotype. But, yeah, I think it was just a quick joke that probably didn't land as well. Maybe it landed well then. I don't know. But, yeah.
Sure, but either way, the three names are definitely, well, they're definitely like, I don't know, they have very communist and New World Order implications.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, absolutely.
So I think they're meant to be cartoons, like in that sense.
Yeah.
And,
Rodney, at this point, Rodney throws Gila under the bus.
Yeah, but we wanted to talk about the science.
Is it now? Now we're talking about the science. Oh, okay. We're doing this now.
See, the thing is, my argument of the anti-liberal, and yeah, you could say anti-communist, but I'm going to go with anti-liberal bent to this movie is there's a deep suspicion of the UN.
Right. Yeah, they make them look like comical and incapable, and that we need this desperado to come and shake things up. So yeah, okay, I'm with you.
There's a reliance on computers and data to make decisions. There's an attempt to do away with nukes and military, which is very hippy dippy lefty stuff for the '60s. Not so much these days. You don't see a lot of Democrats running around saying we get rid of all the nukes.
They talk like they're gonna start wars and then they just bomb people. But yeah.
We've got this cartoonish vision of a technocracy where these three guys really seem sincere in their desire to bring about a better, more productive, more peaceful, and egalitarian world through the application of science and that technocratic elite kind of thing, where like the smartest people amongst us will make decisions that will protect people from their base urges. That's my pitch, and I think Flint is our classic American cowboy kind of super independent conservative guy that even like later when they propose to him, like, but Mr. Flint, like, we're offering you like a better world, and he's like, yeah, but who decides what's a better world or whatever? Like, right. I didn't elect you.
Yeah, right. And like you definitely have because I didn't even realize what a technocracy was. Because I remember we were watching this together, and you had pointed out anti-liberal, and I was like, what? And then when you had explained a technocracy to me, because apparently that's like big in sci-fi, and I know you read a lot of sci-fi. I definitely agree with you that the technocracy exists in the villains. My thing is, I don't know how much of the audience would have understood that. And I'm looking at the time period. This is put out in the '60s, and when we get to the evil, galaxy, facility, we have a commune. You know what I mean? And at that point, we have the hippie movement going on, which was heavily backed by Russian communists, and their whole standpoint was very like there was a lot of communist literature going out. So I think this was more anti-communist, but the technocratic concept that you are saying definitely exists there. I don't know if that was big prevalent at the time. I mean, this is way before my time, so I don't know. But I when I'm watching this film, my whole thing is like, oh, this is anti-communist, considering the timing, because this is probably when J. Edgar Hoover was like on a witch hunt for communists, you know, and like everything hippie represented communist, and so when you say it's like anti-liberal, I'm watching this film and I'm like, no, they're going for the extreme left, which would, the farthest left you can go is probably communist, right? Versus like just saying, oh, liberals are wrong. I think they're more saying communism's wrong and it's all about being a free agent to make your own decisions and be a part of that process, especially when the United States was actively trying to spread democracy or quote unquote democracy, because we don't have one and we never have. But the concept of participating in government and participating in your country, which the opposite side of the spectrum would be, no, your government makes all the decisions, which is kind of a liberal concept. But liberal, like when I call someone, when you talk to someone and they say they're a liberal, they're not thinking they're a communist. They think that they believe in some amount of freedoms and individuality. They're not looking at a totalitarianism like this film is like portraying, where these three scientists are using force to basically convince the world that their vision for the world is the better vision and will bring peace to everyone. But which, as far as I'm concerned, is the big hypocrisy behind the idea of a totalitarian government, or I guess a communism, because communism isn't the only totalitarian governments out there. But the idea where the state makes all the decisions, but the state's made up of a group of people, and it's kind of like, who are you to say that these are the three smartest people in the world? And what they're doing is using violent and terrorist activities to tell people to not be violent or terrorists. And to what degree are they going to make decisions for people's livelihoods? I mean, it's pretty obvious they're looking for a totalitarian government.
There's also the huge flaw, unless they have the technology to reverse the damage that they're inflicting upon the Earth.
I know, right? They've dropped the polar ice caps, which is now like a horrific like fear of like a lot of people today. Yeah, you're gonna drop like one of the most precious areas of the Earth, like as scientists, to bully people into believing you're bringing us a better world. Like, get out of here. Yeah, like, but yeah, I definitely see your point of the technocracy, which I didn't understand was until we had our discussion. But I'm not sure that it's an anti-liberal sentiment so much as an anti-communist sentiment and an anti-like hippie sentiment. Because the utopian commune they created is very, very, very resemblant of like the communes of the 60s. Like where it's just like, here, we're all here to like do whatever we want as long as these scientists like protect us. Like that's what really bothered me, is they used the carnal lure and temptation to convince people. Not only did they use force, fear, and terrorism to scare people into doing what they wanted people to do, but they also used the lure and temptation of the carnal, utopian idea of like free love and food, and I think that's what, as far as like writing goes, I think that was like one of the best contrasts here, is because we have Flint, who's like this desperado trying to protect the free world, blah blah blah, but he also believes in like open relationships because he's in this polyamorous harem support team.
Right.
And like, I don't know if we're going to discuss this later, but like, when the girls are like, we'll get there, when the girls are like brainwashed and he's like trying to like undo their brainwashing, he's like, you're not a sex slave,
Oh, that's
like,
next. That's next. That's
okay,
next.
we'll get into that.
I think we've given the politics of this film at least as much as it's worth discussing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Rodney throws Gila under the bus, and she's taken away to be reprogrammed as a pleasure unit to serve Galaxy in a new way because apparently, like, she's just too much of a fuck up as a head of Section 4. And then we go into the action resolution phase of the movie.
All right, so Flint escapes and rescues Gila. Why? Because of Bond. That's my only guess. This is the typical Bond plot where the villain woman who wants to sleep with him, because everybody wants to sleep with Bond, he doesn't want to leave her behind because he actually cares for her.
Yeah, I'm gonna flag it as minus 5 points. It doesn't seem to make any sense unless you consider that, like, I don't know, he knows that since she has been thrown under the bus by Galaxy.
Well, she helped him. She's the one that tossed him his lighter.
Oh, that's true. And he's on an island. He's got no allies except for possibly this one potential ally.
Oh,
so
all of a sudden he needs a team? You mean like the team? Like
I knew you were gonna say that.
Yeah. But yeah, let's see. So she pretends to be converted and reports to duty, leading Flint to a secret area without much explanation, I guess.
Right. So he's like, let's go. And she's like, no, wait a second. What we should do is not tip our hand. I will pretend that the reprogramming is taken hold, and I'll take you somewhere where you should probably go. And she doesn't explain like where she's going to take him, but it turns out she's going to take him to where his 4 lovely lady support harem ladies are being held. And this next part is strap in, kids. It's going to get silly here. So I'll give her plus 5 points for that. There's a little weird scene where Flint sees a man eat. Okay, so there's a dispenser on the wall that's dispensing canisters of cold cream, the same kind that we saw in the cafe disguised as a bomb, the same kind that they manufacture in the beauty supply manufacturing front that Galaxy was using in Rome. He sees a man eat a pill, like find a pill in a case of the cold cream that's dispensed from the wall. It seems to make the man happy. Flint goes and takes a pill from the next case that's sent in. He pretends to swallow it, but instead pockets it. No reason for this, or do we get anything from this? This is like far, far beyond or before the invention of Viagra, right?
It goes back to that totalitarian government thing we were talking. Like, the idea is we're supposed to understand they're drugging everyone to make them happy. So it's not really
take your happy pill.
Yeah, this is what what was that book? The one where like the young teenagers all have like birth control. It's like a dystopian future where it's like super totalitarian and everybody has to be happy. It's a famous literature book.
Oh, you're talking about Brave New World.
Yes. So this is a very Brave New World type of concept where like here, take your happy pill and get on. Us 3 scientists are going to take care of everything. You don't have to worry about anything. And just be happy, take your pill, and have sex.
Soma is what it's called in Brave New World.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So, I mean, that's kind of what I got out of this. It's like, show up to line, take your pill, and go. If you don't take your pill, you have a problem.
Right, but also he's like, they're proceeding into a series of very weird fantasy sex places.
Yeah.
Each one's stranger than the next.
Yeah.
The first one's fairly straightforward. It's just a big party room, right? I mean, it's just like a bunch of people, like, it looks like they all took a bunch of ecstasy and they're just rocking out, and they're probably all gonna like have crazy sex orgies with each other.
Right.
That is as normal as this shit gets.
Yeah.
From there, I think it's in that first room that he finds two of his girls. Yeah, he finds two of his girls in there. He proceeds to the next chamber, which is like a Roman-esque, like it's supposed to, you're supposed to think like Caligula here. There's like Roman columns. There's guys getting massages and getting grapes fed to them by scantily clad women. Okay, so that's a little weirder. The next one, even weirder, but also kind of awesome. The next one, they've got a fake drive-in movie theater makeout chamber.
Yeah. He goes through several different fetishy type concepts.
And
here.
This is the third of 4, and again, like I said, they get progressively creepier. But I got to admit, this one is. I like this one. out of the ones I see, like, I don't know, like the whole teenage fantasy of like just making out with, like, it's it's young love. It's Back to the Future. It's
yeah.
I don't know. That's the one I would be hanging out in. I'm not gonna apologize for that.
Yeah.
I mean, if I bought into the whole thing, and obviously, like, I wouldn't be into the whole, like, like having makeout sessions with brainwashed sex pleasure units that had formerly been independent, women. That's fucking creepy as fuck. But if I was gonna get into the creepy, this is my flavor of creepy. But it's the fourth one. Okay, so now he finds his third girl. He finds his third girl in the Roman hedonistic room. He finds his fourth girl in the fake drive-in, and then he goes to the fourth room, which is the weirdest one of fucking all.
Yeah, it's kind of reminded me of like those old school Alice in Wonderland movies where they tried to make things look trippy, but it's just a bunch of colors and sounds where they're like brainwashing people, and especially
No. You're forgetting the scene. In fact, it might have been so fucking weird that it didn't even register on you.
Yeah. Okay. Possibly.
So we had the dance party. Okay.
Right.
Cool. And then we had the Roman hedonism kind of feel. Okay, weirder. Then we get to the movie theater, drive-in, make out, pretend you're back in high school, getting your jollies off for the first time or something. I get it. I mean, I get it. Fetishistically, I can respond to that. The fourth room is an ice cave. It's an ice cave with, like, you can see some spearfishing equipment set up against the wall. And like some furs. Like, this is supposed to be like, what fucking fantasy is this? Is this the fantasy where, like, you were, I don't know, heavily injured in an ice fishing accident and some Eskimo chick like nurses you back to life and then you have sex with her? That's the best I can come up with.
I don't even remember this. Was it
fucking weird? You know what? Let's pause and make you watch it. Come here. I can't give you volume because it'll interfere with the call, but
yeah.
Okay. Oh, pill. Okay. Okay. Dance party.
Right.
All right. Cool. Drive-in movie theater.
Yeah.
Even weirder.
Yeah.
And then, in my opinion, like, you just drive it off the cliff with this one, like. What the hell? I don't even remember this. It's because it's so weird. It didn't even fucking, like, occur to you.
What the fuck? Did we get to see what it is?
No!
It's
Just that's where he finds Mila.
Just to let you know that they hit all of the... That's...
Okay, so I just showed it to Dave. And Dave, like, you agree, right? Like, it's so weird. It just slips through your fingers like the first time you see it. You don't even notice this weird progression of like fetish fantasy from fairly normal to fucking what?
Yeah, like maybe this might be like that Peyton Place type of reference. There might have been like some movie that involved a romance in like some ice cave somewhere. I don't know, but I have no idea what that was.
I kept thinking of like the Star Trek episode where like Spock gets isolated from the rest of the crew, and he goes through the Ponfar or whatever.
Uh-huh.
Like, and he's like, super far away from any Vulcan chick that he can have sex with, and so he starts going like crazy. And I think that happens in an ice cave, and I think there's a lady that like nurses him to health or something. That's all I could think of. Moving on!
Yeah, moving on.
Flint signals the fleet. Now that he's got his girls together, the thing that was stopping him from telling the fleet to destroy the island, that's like solved. He's got his ladies, and he's got Gila.
Yeah, I don't know, but we still didn't get through the brainwash. Did we get to talk about the brainwashing?
Yeah,
I really wanted to talk about it.
Went past it, but it doesn't really have anything to do with spy stuff.
I really want to talk about it.
So, audience, we're gonna rewind a little bit. Dave's got something to say.
All right, so like when he spots like a couple of his girls, they're in this weird brainwashing, I guess, room where, like I was saying, it reminded me of those old Alice in Wonderland movies, or like those old movies where they were trying to make things look trippy.
Oh yeah, it gets really trippy in here.
Yeah, and it's just like lights and sounds, and then there's like these repeats of statements, like, that are like being fed into like these people's heads or whatever. So, and this goes back to my idea, I guess my feeling that we're looking at like a totalitarian future here or whatever. And his girls are being like programmed, and how he deprograms one of his harem girls is, you're not a sex slave, or you're not a sex toy, I think is what he said. That's how he deprogrammed them. That's exactly what they are. Like literally, these girls are just like out there as his harem. And like we talked about this at the beginning of the movie, he has to go and like approach each one individually, give him a kiss and tell him something sweet or whatever, and like they're supposed to be happy about it. It's like
it's not a good look for the sexual revolution in hindsight.
No. Yeah.
But at the time, I think they're all supposed to be in a wonderfully like loving relationship, a polygamous relationship that's a loving, not polyamorous, no, polygamous. Polyamorous is something else. This is polygamy. But at the time, with audiences, we're supposed to see it as something that they are. It's a functioning polygamous relationship in which all the partners are getting what they want out of it. Yes, in retrospect, it's an incredibly bad look, but at the time, that's what people were thinking.
Yeah, and like, I guess the idea from this story that we're looking at is, instead of people being forced to do what they're told, and back to the Brave New World, type of, or like there's that other book, The Giver, where it's like you have like this kind of like totalitarian overstay, like overwhelming making decisions for you. His way of deprogramming his girls from this brainwashing is like, you're not a sex toy, you're not a sex slave, or what. Like, it was just so silly. But I do think this has to do a lot with spycraft, because like it's not like
there's a massively unintended double standard going on.
Right. And there's this concept of this brainwashing where people are programmed, in various different ways, and now you have to go through deprogramming and stuff like that. So yeah, I just wanted to talk about that real quick. Yeah.
Sure. And I feel like it's a good time for me to put this out there. Like, one thing I'm not a super serious student of like gender issues and relations, but I feel like I do have some insights into the sexual revolution that I feel could be shared. Like, one thing I find really interesting is the fact that Hugh Hefner, the publisher of Playboy magazine, when public sentiment turned against his magazine and started to regard it as an instrument of sexism and an instrument of the suppression of the image of women in our society, he was honestly surprised. He was honestly blindsided by that, because from his perspective, he had felt like his magazine was elevating and liberating women. Now, I'm not defending Hugh Hefner as being on the right side of history, but I think it's really interesting to think of him and his work from his perspective, and to realize that, like, yeah, he was wrong, but he wasn't, I don't know, crass or evil. He thought he was doing good. Like, these kind of representations of women being, I mean, that's what I always think. And it's so funny too. I find it super funny in like 1960s science fiction, which is like, it's a laugh riot in my opinion. And you see this over and over again. You see this idea of like, oh, we used to be a repressed society where women were sex objects, but we didn't admit it, and we wouldn't allow them to express their sexuality. Well, now, in the new swinging 60s, everything's fixed, and all the women can be sluts now.
Yeah, I know, right?
Everything's fixed.
As long as you choose to be one, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I honestly think it's weird, but I honestly think in the middle of it, people really thought they had solved the problem.
Yeah. I'm not going to say anything about Hugh Hefner.
Let's just say this movie does not pass the Bechdel test. No,
it does not. Not at all.
All right. Back to the plot. We're almost there. We're almost done here. The doctors, I don't know, the president begins announcing capitulation on a worldwide channel. He's saying, like, we're giving up. We're going to let the scientists rule the world. And by the way, I should have brought this up in our previous conversation. I'll just divert really quickly. Again, my whole, this movie has an anti-liberal slant. I checked. The president at the time in 1966, that is Lyndon B. Johnson, famous Democrat, author of the Great Society reforms, which had just been instituted in 1964 and 1965. And that's another pin, in my opinion, that says to me this movie is a little bit of a thumb in the eye of the libs.
I see.
We talked enough about that before.
Yeah.
I don't know. Flint says, like, no, don't blow up the island yet. Don't capitulate yet. We can still do this. He goes into action sabotage mode. There's no spy stuff left in this movie. It's just a bunch of punching and smashing machines and destroying all the mad scientist stuff. And he gets all the people safely off the island before it blows up. And that's the movie.
Well, and then Gila, of course, joins the harem.
Yes.
Happy ending.
And she does, and we know this for sure, even though it's heavily implied here. We get confirmation of that in the second movie. When he's called out of retirement again for a mission, he's only living with 3 women.
Oh.
But he explains this by saying, 5 was just too many.
So he kicked out 2? 4 was okay, but he wanted to hang on to Gila.
I wonder if Gila made the cut.
Yeah.
All right, so David, do you think we're ready to come in from the cold now?
Absolutely, let's do it.
Agents, please report for debriefing on this operation. The director will see you now.
So final impressions of the movie. I did not really enjoy this movie, other than,
Let me break in real quick. I think 5 times while we were watching it together, you said, "What is this movie?"
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the whole time it was ridiculous. I mean, I enjoyed it like for MST3K type of reason, but overall it was, I don't know, it made me feel kind of I had this like super Illuminati feeling to it, and I don't know what it is. I can't really put my finger on it, but something was weird off of it. But I don't know, I'm probably gonna give it like a two. I had some moments that I enjoyed, and but most of it I was like, whatever. Anyway, what'd you think about it?
Let's see. Well, okay, so this is 2 episodes now, and we put them together for a reason. Bond and Flint. We have Bond the standard and Flint the parody of the standard. Even though, like, you could really say Bond itself is like, especially '60s Bond. It's already a parody of itself. So how do you really need this? You know? And like some people have said, like, like, knowing that the Derek Flint movies exist, did you really need Austin Powers? Is any of it necessary? It's all kind of like it's all kind of part of a piece. The sexism in this movie, I found, don't at me, funner than the sexism in the James Bond movie. Because at least here it's over the top, it's played for laughs, and I actually feel like, I don't know, I feel like Derek Flint's 4 ladies are kind of cool, and I don't know, they feel more empowered to me than like the dumb blonde Russian agent in the Bond Russia with Love that we just did, who just seems like to be a person without any agency whatsoever. And these ladies don't seem to have a whole bunch of, I don't know, behind the scenes, I feel like maybe they really do have more agency. I feel better about them. I don't feel good about Gila falling for Flint the way she does. That's fucking weird and creepy and odd. But anyways, I'm probably babbling too much about that. Just on versus the Russia with Love, I like Derek Flint a lot more than James Bond. He's sillier. He's funner to watch. I could give this one. Do I want to give it a 3? Yeah, I'll go with a solid 3. I could watch this again.
I agree. I had more fun watching this than I did the Bond film. But as I've said several times, I'm not a big fan of the Bond.
All right. Reviewing the tradecraft such as it is. My number 3 best tradecraft in this movie was also Dave's number 2, which was 0008 coming in and doing a fake fight with Derek Flint while giving him some information, so that they could exchange some information in a way that there's probably better ways you could have done it, but the way they did it was fun and enjoyable and kind of sneaky.
Yeah. My number 3 was after getting out of the bathroom, he checked the cream case and discovered it was a bomb, and then just pulls out a gun to scare everybody out of the club. That
was in Marseille.
Yeah, Marseille. Yeah. And then, what was your number 2?
My number 2 is trapping our intrepid Derek Flint in a safe with no ventilation. It seemed like a very safe and sensible way to try to kill this guy who's demonstrated that he's virtually unkillable. Yeah.
And then, as Todd said, my number 2 was the pretend fight with 0008 and Flint to pass on info.
And our number 1 is a shared one. We like the metabolism trick to fake his death to get to the island that way.
Yeah, I think that was cool.
Yeah, it's pretty much the coolest thing he does in this movie.
Yeah, it is. My number 3 worst tradecraft was the hidden building. It was just I don't see the feasibility based on the use of resources and just really the purpose of it. And then I don't know. It was pretty bad.
My number 3 worst was the villains trying to take out Flint before he was even on the case, because that just didn't pay off well for them at all.
Yeah. My number 2 worst, after the building was hidden, they were just loudly talking about the mission in a public place. Like, worst intelligence ever. Like, look at us, we're spies.
Number 2 worst for me is Gila assuming that the bomb would take out Flint. Again, that's back in Marseille. There's no reason for her to think that it would have killed him, and there's no reason for her to have assumed that it would have killed him without verifying somehow. I mean, it would just be really easy for her to just watch what happened after she left the cafe.
Absolutely.
Let's hear some number ones.
Yeah, my number 1 was definitely Flint saying no to the team, and that's mainly because of how real. I know this is a really over the top film, but realistically, that's probably the worst mistake he made. Period. I mean, our story, it didn't really affect him. No, maybe a little bit later it'd be nice to have a team, but I don't know. Yeah, that's a big no-no.
There's just no reason to not, Yeah. And my number 1 worst, which is it's just such a no-brainer, after the building has disappeared in Rome, that they're just like, oh, well, I guess we can't figure this case out, when it would have been astonishingly easy. Like, even I could do this, and I have no training or whatsoever. Like, my grandmother could have solved this case. Yeah. Just ask someone, has the cafe really been there for years?
Yeah.
Case closed. So, redactions. Number 1 to 5. 1 redaction reflects a very realistic spy movie. That would indicate that this movie represents something that actually happened, and no agency needed to come in and say, well, you can't tell them about that.
So I don't think we need a whole bunch of discussion between us, because I know we both have to agree on this. I think a 4.5 is good, because we're saving 5 for Austin Powers.
I could just hit this with a 5.
Oh, you want? All right, we're gonna go for. I'll take a 5 on this. Yeah.
Yeah, let's hit it. It's not worth the 4.5.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was a show.
All right, our man Flint.
Yep.
David, I want to stay very, very far. I know there's so much stuff we have to do in the 60s, but let's take a serious break from the 60s for a bit. I'm just 60s stout.
We need to. We're doing Miss Sloan next.
All right. Yeah.
We have to do it. Yeah.
All right.
And that's the end of our show. Thanks for listening. If you'd like to reach out to us, you can find us on Twitter at spies_like_us. Visit us on our website at www.spieslikeus.net. You know, find out about upcoming episodes. Also, what will really help us out is if you give us a review on wherever you found our podcast, either on iTunes or your Android app or YouTube or wherever you listen to us. Even if you didn't like the show, just give us a review. It'll help us, give us feedback so we can make the show better. And it can also help other people who haven't found the show yet find out about us. Hey, Moira, initiate Protocol 9.
Protocol 9 initiated. This podcast will self-destruct in 20 seconds. The preceding transmission sampled the songs Ice Cold by Audionautics, Enter the Party by Kevin MacLeod, and sound effects from freesound.org. Attributions and links are found at spieslikeus.net. Editing by Todd Hostetler.